So, first off, welcome back or welcome to the bunker, depending on if you are an original listener from the first time we ran through this. This is a revamp with a different spin on things. But I am your host, Brock Sanders, and here at the bunker, we give controversial takes from a secluded place where we hide from the angry mob outside that's bound to be waiting for us after these controversial takes. So, the point of this run through of the bunker is we're not going to talk about stuff that other people talk about, which is in the South, Louisiana, SEC sports, specifically LSU athletics, Saints talk, Pels talk. Would love to go over that, but if you're into that sort of thing, you got a bunch of other people to go to. Here we're talking about the things that not a lot of people get to listen to, such as golf, tennis, UFC, fighting, just in general, sports that are on the rise that don't necessarily get the light of day as they should. I'll be bringing on a few guests on this show here and now. And the point of these guests are just to shed light on the things that I'm not too familiar with that can offer an insider light on these sports a little bit better than I can. And we're starting off this first show, a new episode 1. We're going to be going over some UFC talk with my first guest, a UFC connoisseur, fighter analyst, and a specialist at getting things off of the top shelf, my best friend, Jamie Shults.
Good to be here.
Of course, man. Good to be here, of course. And I'm, again, your host, Brock Sanders. I mentioned that we're going to be talking about UFC 287 starting, or it's going to be happening in Miami this Saturday. And why, Jamie, are we going to be talking about UFC, man?
Because we're going to Miami.
We're going to Miami, baby.
We are going to the fight card. I'm pumped the fuck up, dude. Huge Israel Adesanya fan.
Mm-hmm.
And they got good fights on the prelims, and they have the whole main card is completely set. I know every single one of these fighters on the main card. Makes me excited. They got good matchups, interesting matchups, and I'm just pumped. I'm so excited. Excited.
I think I'm more pumped at the fact that we got the trip out of the group chat.
Yeah, for once. Thankfully, it's for this main card of all things, not just a beach trip.
Yeah, I think we've talked about beach trips, golf trips, so many trips, and you're the only one of us out of the three of us, me, you, and our other friend Nathan, that has gone to a UFC event. So
yes.
You're kind of in the mix of these types of things.
Yes. My first one was in Scottsdale, Glendale, and it was the UFC 263, Israel Adesanya and Marvin Vettori, Davidson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno, and Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz. Super cool matchup, but I was pumped up for that one. I'm really pumped up for this fight card. I mean, stoked for it.
So we watched the first Adesanya versus Pereira, which they are the title fight of this event.
Mm-hmm.
We watched the first fight, put some money out on those parlays, on those bets. Came out short in some of them. Me specifically, I think I put like a 7-leg parlay or something, where I got everything right, but Adesanya lost at the end.
But what sucks is that he would have won that fight. He would have won that fight if he had another minute.
Would he? He was playing defensive that whole fight.
Well, he almost... No! Yes. BS! No! BS! I'm going to tell you why. Because first round, needed 10 more seconds. Pereira would have been out. Okay? I think it was a left hook by Izzy that caught him, and he hit him another, like, 1 or 2 times, and then the bell rung. Could have knocked him out there. Rest of the fight, Izzy, in my opinion, was really on the offense. Pierre seemed pretty hesitant. I guess I wouldn't say hesitant. He's very defensive, but he's a counter kind of kickboxer. So he's like a shark. I mean, he's waiting till he smells blood in the water and he's attacking. Pretty much what it is. And I mean, in my opinion, Izzy won the second round, third round, fourth round, and then fifth round. Obviously, I mean, very upsetting for an Izzy fan like me. He got knocked out. Well, I guess technical knockout, but in the last round. If he didn't, he still would have won the fight, which is even more angry or aggravating for me because he could have won in the first round if he had a couple more seconds. Pierre would have been out. And ironically, Pierre knocked him out in the fifth round doing the fight. So
I don't know. I came into that fight, the first fight, where Pierre hadn't gone, if I'm not mistaken, hadn't gone to a third round yet. He was knocking out his opponents left and right, TKOs,
not in the
knockouts.
UFC.
Not in the UFC.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he comes from a kickboxing background where, you probably have to wait out a little bit longer in those rounds. But I came into this fight thinking, well, all Izzy has to do is just wait him out and then strike at him in the fourth, the fifth round, which is a little bit of what he did. But the reason why I said he played on the defensive is, man, I felt like he was just running the octagon around.
Well, in my opinion, you were there. I was screaming it.
I know.
Get off the fence. He would not get off the fence. And with a guy like Pierre, the power that he's got, the fighting IQ that he has, he's already fought Israel Adesanya 2 other times. I think they were fighting in Glory or something like that, some kind of kickboxing organization. Like I said, they had already fought twice. Pierre knocked him out in their second fight, and Pierre won in a BS decision in their first fight. So they've now, with this one coming up, this will be their 4th fight together. Pierre has won all 3 of them. Really aggravating for me because I love Izzy. But he, like you said, he just kept running around the cage on the octagon. And with Pierre, he's got this crazy left hook that just finds the target. Especially for Israel Adesanya's chin, it finds the target. And he kept backing up, and I'm just screaming at the TV, get off the fence. Because he needs to be in the middle to where he has space to move around, go left, right, back, somewhere other than just left and right. Because if he zigs when he should have zagged, he gets knocked out, which is exactly what happened in their first fight, which is, it's aggravating. It's aggravating. Yeah. So, but yeah.
So Izzy opens up as a minus 146, or favored as a $1.46 according to FanDuel odds. What do you think the odds makers are kind of looking at, and what do you think he's kind of got to do to pull the title back from Piera? Because he's a favorite to win it. So obviously odds makers are looking at something. That or they're trying to scam people out of some money whenever betting on Izzy when Lord knows Piera definitely has beat him 3 times. How does Izzy even go for the 4th time?
I mean, it really didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I thought going into this, Pierre would be the favorite. He's knocked him out 2 out of the 3 fights that they've had. Now, I guess it technically doesn't matter because it's not UFC, but whatever. That matters to me. But I guess what he's got going for him with that is how well he did in the first fight, I guess. But like you said, maybe they're trying to scam some people out of money. Because, I was really shocked that Pierre was not the favorite, especially after beating Israel Adesanya like he did. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I do think Izzy is a safe bet, but I'm also a little biased because I would also, just a little bit. I would say Pierre is also a good safe bet, but a lot of people had questions going into this. It's not a kickboxing fight. It's UFC. You have so many tools at your disposal being a mixed martial arts champion, especially one that he's been with his title defenses and all that. A lot of people expected him to wrestle more, and I'm really hoping that we do see that. That's what I would like to see, because he didn't win on the feet. He hasn't won on the feet against Pereira, and now he has the ability to have an up on him, and he just needs to take it. And that's why I think he's going to win this fight, because I think he's learned from that mistake. I would hope he's learned from that mistake and not just going to stand up with him. I think he's just as good, if not better, on the feet. But he just doesn't have the power like Pierre does. I mean, Pierre hits like a fucking freight train, man. And
especially that homing missile of a left hook that he's got also. It's just crazy.
So, I don't know. That's all I really got to say about the bet and odds thing. I think it is a good bet for Pierre, or for Adesanya, but I also think Pierre is also a good bet, especially if he's the underdog. Personally, if I'm no biases, I would take Pierre as the bet. But again, I just think Izzy will get it done. Hopefully he wrestles. But if he doesn't use that, then it's Pierre all day, bet the house on it. Mm-hmm. That's my personal opinion about it. And
Pierre is actually only double money odds on this fight. So you only win $1.14 off a dollar bet, betting Pierre. So it's not a huge gaping, difference between the two. I mean, obviously the better of the two is the Pierre bet. But what I was thinking while you were talking about Adesanya and his, thinking that wrestling would be the way to go in this fight, when Adesanya moved up in weight class to go fight, I believe it was Jan Blachowicz, he was dominated on the ground just because Jan Blachowicz is just massively bigger than him, and going up a weight class is just so difficult. And I mean, you kind of don't blame, getting a little bit off track, you kind of don't blame John Jones taking 3 years off to go up in weight class because it's that difficult. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I would say I looked forward to the first fight thinking that Adesanya is going to wear him out and, attack at him in the 4th and 5th round. Now I'm on, your side with it, that in this second fight, to wear him out, he's got to go on the ground. He's got to. And although I can tell that, and like I said, I'm not huge into, I just kind of got into everything in the world of mixed martial arts, but I know Adesanya, the style bender, he likes to be on his feet.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he's comfortable with. I mean, and I would be too if I went 75-2 in glory kickboxing or whatever he was at. His only losses were Pierre. Without Pierre, he'd be 75-0. That's incredible. That's huge. I mean, I would be too. But he's got to get out of his comfort zone if he is going to beat Pierre. He's got to stop. I think he's just being hard-headed. I think he's angry that he's been beaten so many times by this dude. He knows he's better, or at least he thinks he's better. Anyway, but, I think he's better. And he needs to know that he is better. But he can't be going into this fight angry that Pierre beat him last time and this isn't going to, end up like the last time. He's got to calm down, and he's good about this. He's even talked about it. He's good at calming down and being like, okay, you know what? This is time to shine. This is, kill or be killed kind of deal. And that's what he's got to do. And he's got to utilize the wrestling. Got to. Plain and simple.
Yep. No, I think in the first fight, he kind of had it in his head. Just assuming he kind of had it in his head, I'm going to beat this dude at his own game.
Yeah.
And I mean, who would? I mean, looking at Pierre's record right now, he's only had 8 fights in the UFC.
Yeah.
And he's already the belt holder. Mm-hmm. And, I mean...
They fast-tracked him quick.
Well, I mean, it's ratings thing. They wanted to get Pierre to Adesanya because they know Adesanya's been running middleweight to the ground, just
he's
dominating
lapped it.
it.
He's lapped it.
Yep.
So, I mean, but that speaks to how good Israel Adesanya is. He's not just some nobody off the street that won the belt and then is going to get defeated the next time he tries to defend it. He's, in my opinion, one of the greatest, if not the greatest middleweight. Just based off of accolades and all that stuff, I would consider him the best. So, yeah, I mean, he's just got to calm his ego down and really think about all this stuff. Because after that, then what? I mean, you stay in middleweight and just fight another one? If you get beat twice, nobody's going to want a trilogy. Well, then what? Like I said, is he retiring if he loses? What happens if he loses? I mean, that's what I'm scared of. As an Izzy fan, huge Izzy fan, I'm scared that he'll retire if he loses to Pierre. Because again, what happens?
Yeah, I would say that a trilogy isn't out of the question because we've seen trilogies before. Or at least I have. I've seen.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it. Holloway versus Volkanovski went to a trilogy, but I mean that could very well be the same fate that if Izzy loses, it could very well be the same fate as Holloway, which is
Yeah. I mean, the exact same situation too, because Holloway lost twice to Alexander Volkanovski, and they still had a trilogy. Most people that get defeated by one person twice, there's not going to be a trilogy because, I mean,
well,
you
who
won.
wants it? Who wants it?
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know if he gets beat by Pierre that I even would want to see a trilogy. Just being honest, it's good, bad blood. It makes the fights exciting, but at the end of the day, the fight has to be entertaining, and you've been beat by him twice. I really don't want to see a third one. So again, that's what I come back to is like, is he going to try and stay in middleweight or is he retiring? Like, I mean, he is kind of coming to the end of his career. He's like 33, 34, something like that. Some people say that's your prime. Others say that's towards the end. So, I don't know. It's all up in the air. It's interested to see how it plays out.
And what would you say is the prime? Because we've had discussions before where primes in certain sports are varying, like
Yeah.
in a wide range. Like NFL prime, the average NFL lifespan, and when I told you this, you were shocked about it, is close to 4 years.
Mhm.
And it's up since then. I believe previously the average NFL lifespan was 3.5 years. So your prime, once you hit like 27, 26, honestly, I think 26 is you're at the edge of it, but 27, man, you're on the downturn. Like you've already peaked or you're going to peak, and it's changed differently. And quarterback prime is different. But what is the prime you'd say for UFC?
I mean, it varies so much with fighters. A lot of people, they get hurt and whatever. I mean, we see it in all sports. Some people are just accident prone. So that certainly plays a factor into it. And then you got some people that just never, ever have an injury. They barely even get sick, some people. So, I mean, again, that certainly plays a factor into it. But if you're just talking about average, I would say for fighting, probably early 30s. I wouldn't go past 34. I would say 30 to 32 is probably most people's prime if they get to a top level career in UFC. That's just me. Some people say 35. I think Joe Rogan says like 34, 35 is like some people's prime. Or I think it's a little bit earlier than that. Again, I mean, people just start getting hurt at some point, especially with how rough fighting is on your entire body. I mean, it's, again, I would just say 30 to 33.
And also on this fight card, and the reason why I bring up prime is because we've got a few guys on this fight card that are towards the end of that prime, have gone through and through with the UFC. What are some guys kind of you're looking at this fight card, not only as a fan, but also kind of, logistically, who's popping out on this fight card? Like I know you had mentioned Masvidal. I know you've also mentioned Kevin Holland. Like who would who's your most wanted to watch on this Miami trip, man?
Well, obviously, other than the Israel Adesanya fight,
Of course.
I mean, obviously that's my favorite one. God, I don't know. It's such a good fight card, man. I mean, I'm interested in seeing all of them, but if I had to choose other than Israel Adesanya fight, one fight that I would buy this pay-per-view for, probably Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal, he's kind of on the downslope. He's certainly getting up there in age. I think he's like 36, 37. He's pretty old for the sport. But, I mean, his longevity has been phenomenal. It's like he's never really come back from the Kamaru Usman fight. He got knocked out. I mean, brutally knocked out by Kamaru Usman. And it's like he's missing something. He fought Colby Covington. He came into that fight with a lot of anger. Really bad blood there. Super cool matchup. I was excited to see that fight, but absolutely got dominated just because his wrestling is not there. And Gilbert Burns, I would say he's on his come up. I mean, he's kind of been on his come up a little bit, but I think if he beats Jorge Masvidal and one or two more guys, I bet he's fighting Leon Edwards. Honestly, after Jorge Masvidal, I would think probably one fight, if not immediately go to a title fight. That's just me. I mean, he's a fantastic fighter. Was he ranked like top 5?
He's 5th right now.
Okay. I mean, who's in front of him? Bilal Muhammad, Hamzat, Colby. I mean, he's got absolute killers in front of him. But he's a killer also. I would love to see Jorge Masvidal win. I really would. I love Jorge as a fighter. He's hilarious outside the cage. And he's a really good fighter. He's just, I just don't see how he wins against Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a tank. He hits hard. He gave Hamzat Chimaev his hardest fight. I mean, 100% hardest fight for Hamzat, and looked really good doing it. I'm excited to see it because, again, I would love to see Jorge win, and maybe even, hopefully, he's been working on his wrestling after Colby Covington. But, I mean, Gilbert Burns is just an absolute killer. But, yeah, I'm excited to see that one.
Mm-hmm. So you said that, say Gilbert Burns beats Masvidal. And sidetracking a little bit, you also said on Instagram, or you sent in the group chat on Instagram that Masvidal, if he loses, is going to retire after this fight. But you also said Burns beating Masvidal could get on the spot for the belt, fighting Leon Edwards. Would he jump those other killers, even though he's ranked 5th, or would he have to go through the gauntlet, go through Chimaev?
I mean, who actually knows? But yeah, everybody seems to be saying Chimaev. That's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he's fought Colby Covington before, or if he's fought Kamaru Usman before. I know Kamaru Usman lost to Leon Edwards, I believe, in that title fight that they had a while back. Twice. Yeah. And I don't know how, the rankings jumping matters, or if it's, ratings based, or if it's actually, who deserves a fight at the belt and when they deserve a fight at the belt, and kind of how that plays out.
So, I mean, it goes 50-50 with the UFC, because sometimes they make some matchups that just skip. Say Gilbert Burns gets the title shot. Well, you just skipped Bilal Muhammad, Hamzat, and Colby Covington, and Kamaru Usman, since he's number 1, to fight Leon Edwards. In my opinion, that's dumb, because Leon Edwards beat Kamaru Usman twice now. In my opinion, you need to set up Colby Covington, he's number 2, to fight Leon Edwards. And for whatever reason, Leon Edwards does not want that. Well, I shouldn't say for whatever reason. Colby Covington would probably kick his ass on the feet. Plain and simple, he's a blanket. He is a weighted, giant, sweaty blanket on every single opponent. He's boring as hell to watch because of that. But man, it's like the Conor thing. Everybody watches Colby Covington to see him lose, and he just doesn't. In my opinion, that's the next fight to make for Leon Edwards. If they gave Gilbert Burns the title shot, that would, in my opinion, be absolutely insane to skip him. But we've seen stuff like that before in the UFC, where they make just these insane decisions for fights. And I guess, for ratings and stuff like that. I mean, technically, that's what happened with Pierre and Israel Adesanya. I think Pierre was like 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
And got a title shot. because Izzy had ran through all these people, and everybody's like, well, boring, 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 boring until you get to Pierre. So I guess in that instance, that's a smart move to do. But with that weight class, the top five contenders, they're all killers. It would be stupid to skip Burns. Not saying that he doesn't deserve it. In my opinion, if you're not going to set up Colby Covington with Leon Edwards, it's Bilal Muhammad's turn. Hamzat is in front of Bilal Muhammad. He's 3. Bilal Muhammad's 4. Bilal Muhammad was fighting Leon Edwards. There was a no contest for that because of an eye poke, a really bad eye poke. I personally I think that's a matchup to me. But if you're not going to do that, then put Gilbert Burns against Bilal Muhammad. See who wins that. I mean, that would be a great fight. If not Gilbert Burns, then Hamzat again. I mean, that would be an awesome rematch also for Gilbert Burns. Also be good for Hamzat. You can go so many different directions with this weight class. I mean, it's so many interesting matchups. I mean, I would love to see all these guys fight all of them. I mean, every matchup against every one of these guys would be awesome.
I do believe that top 5 matchups, or even multiple top 5 matchups between fellow top 5 ranked fighters to decide who goes at Leon, is a solid choice. It's the well-known choice by, I imagine, a lot of fans, but I do understand through the casual viewpoint. I mean, if Gilbert Burns is hot, Gilbert Burns is hot.
Right.
Like, you give him a shot at the belt, even if he gets his ass kicked. I mean, at the end of the day, pay-per-view money is pay-per-view money. Like,
yeah. I mean, and that's what UFC's trying to do. They're trying to sell fights. They're a business. But at the same time, when you skip people that really should be having a title fight or fighting people in the top 5 like this, it's going to piss some people off. But people are still going to watch it because people would be interested in Gilbert Burns versus Leon Edwards. I know I would.
Gilbert Burns is also a heavy favorite on FanDuel. From what it sounds like, and bringing it back to what I said about Masvidal, retiring after this fight if he loses. I mean, if odds makers are correct, I mean, it's a minus 520 odds on Gilbert Burns, which anybody who's not into sports gambling, that is so garbage odds if you just bet it outright. But if you want to make some money, if you want to make a little dough, you got to put up a little dough. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, sure enough, he'll win it. But, yeah, it is one, after just watching a little bit of it, it is one that I am somewhat interested in.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Jorge handles how ferocious this dude is in the cage. Those odds really don't surprise me on that one. I mean, I just really don't. I hate to say it because I am a fan of his. I just don't understand how he does win this fight. Gilbert Burns is just that good. He's ferocious, man. I mean, he's a killer. But again, this is fighting. I mean, you could do Ben Askren and Jorge Masvidal reenactment with these two. I mean, that would be insane. I mean, it's fighting. I mean, it takes one shot, man. And that's all Jorge needs is just one shot, one counter, something crazy to happen. And then his career is reignited. I mean, I would love to see him win. If I'm betting money on it, I'm not even remotely coming close to Jorge. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's like a fun bet, just to win some money if he does, lottery kind of win. But yeah, I mean, if I'm genuinely trying to get some money, I'm betting Gilbert. I mean, that's a safe bet, plain and simple.
Now, lastly, what do you think is kind of a sleeper fight that isn't on the main card and kind of, people either buying the pay-per-view from home or are actually going to the fight, kind of like me and kind of like Nathan, our other friend, going into this Miami trip, we're all looking at the main card, but what do you think is kind of a sleeper fight that's going to be really interesting to look at and also going to be a really good fight?
100% without a doubt, Chris Curtis and Kelvin Gastelum. One of my most favorite fights in general, let alone with it being one of my favorite fighters, is Kevin Gastelum versus Izzy. I mean, Kevin Gastelum is so good, but I believe he's kind of coming towards the end of his career also. Chris Curtis is on a tear right now. What is he? 30-9. I forgot who he fought last, but it was a great fight for him. He looked great. I mean, it's going to be a great fight. I really hope Kelvin Gastelum can kind of put a pace on Chris Curtis. I think, in my opinion, if you're fighting Chris Curtis, you're gonna kind of want to be fast with it. Chris Curtis is definitely going to be who beat him? Joaquin Buckley?
Joaquin Buckley, yeah.
Or he beat
Joaquin
yeah,
Buckley by KO.
Yeah, I mean it was. I don't remember that fight, but I know I watched it. He looked great in that fight. I know he did because I was impressed. I do remember that, and it's going to be a great fight. And I'm really not seeing a whole lot of talk about it. I guess just because it's a prelim, I guess that's what that is. But Kelvin Gastelum at one time was fighting for the belt. He fought Izzy, and a fantastic fight. But I don't know if that's the same Kelvin Gastelum because he is kind of on a downstroke of his career. But you just can't count Kelvin out. I mean, he's a menace, dude. But I mean, so is Chris Curtis. And it's aggravating to me because this is an interesting fight for me, and I'm not seeing talk about it. It's like I said, it's aggravating.
Now is this fight going to be? I know that at least from my experience with watching the UFC, there's a difference between wrestlers and strikers, and I feel like those are the two distinctions, at least to my novice and naive brain. Is this fight kind of going to be on the ground? Is it going to be a little standing up? Is it going to be a little mix of both? Are we going to see what are these two specialists at? Do you think?
I believe Chris Curtis has a really strong wrestling background. I wouldn't quote me on that. Kelvin can stand with anybody. I mean, in my opinion, even now. I'm not saying that he's going to win by any means, but I mean, he's just got great hands. I definitely see this eventually going to the ground at one point, and I think that's going to be because Chris Curtis. Wouldn't be surprised if Kelvin tries to take him down. Kelvin, I'm pretty sure he's good on the ground, but nothing spectacular. I believe Chris Curtis is a good wrestler. Again, wouldn't quote me on it, but I think it's going to mostly be a stand-up fight. I would not be surprised if it does go to the ground. That's just me, with the knowledge that I do have.
Now, Gastelum is the favorite in this fight.
Is he?
Yes, he is the favorite. He's minus 128 odds, but not by a much.
Right.
And Chris Curtis is win your money back odds, so plus 100. You bet $1, you win $1. If I just going off of your knowledge alone, if we're making bets here, tack Chris Curtis on for a parlay with a little lottery action on it. Bet the underdog plus 100 odds. I mean, that's pretty solid, especially if he's on a tear like this. Now, I understand Gastelum, like you said, fought for the belt at one point. He's squared away with the best of the best. And Adesanya, just from what I've seen and from what I've heard, isn't necessarily a good judge of competition because he kicks everybody's ass outside of Pereira.
Nice little jab.
Nice little jab. He lost me money, so I gotta love Izzy, love the fact that he's a nerd like myself. So, right. But interesting. Yeah, there's some interesting fights going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the betting. I would certainly loop Chris Curtis into a parlay. If you only do money line, I would bet Chris Curtis. I mean, in my opinion, that's going to be the bet to make. It's going to be a great fight. I'm really interested to see how Kelvin handles him. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm putting money on Chris Curtis on that one. That's just me. Yeah.
So far we got our bets. We go with Izzy obviously for the win. We got to get our big bucks back, or at least I do, because I think I lost out on like $200 on that bet.
Oh,
Well,
really?
I didn't spend $200, but I lost out on $200.
Oh, okay.
So go with Izzy with a solid bet. If you're feeling risky, I'd roll with Piera, but live with the consequences. Gilbert Burns, you just can't steer away from the minus 540, man. You can't.
Yeah, I mean, you just can't. I'm not gonna say it's money locked in on that bet because again, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I just don't see him how he wins that fight.
Yep.
Talk about Jorge.
Yeah. And then slap on Chris Curtis with a good old plus 100.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Gaslam, with the experience, you got to give it to the hot hand.
Yeah, for sure.
So out of, fights aside, going on to the Miami trip as a whole, what is, outside of the fights, as a closer, outside of the fights, what's your favorite thing you're looking forward to on this Miami trip?
That's a good question. The bars. I'm interested to see the difference between them, if we can even get into some of them from what I've heard. But I mean, I'm excited to honestly just kind of get away, have a nice, I say relaxing, we're going to UFC fights, but a nice, easygoing trip, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think we're planning on going to the beach, excited for the beach. I haven't been to the beach since spring break of like 2019 or something like that. So it's been a little while for me. So I would say the beach or drinking on the beach.
Yeah, this is also a different beach from your stereotypical Gulf Shores, Panama City.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the ocean. It's Miami. I mean,
it's Miami, man.
South Beach, baby.
Anything but relaxing.
Yeah, I guess technically, yeah.
I don't know. My fat ass, we're looking forward to the food. I heard Cuban food down there, man.
Food.
Oh, dude. I heard it's going to be
up about that.
It's going to be a
I
great
love
time.
food.
All right. Well, we'll close it at that. It was good. It was a good episode 1. Thank you for joining. Jamie's of course going to be back for any other UFC conversation. Might even hop in for a little golf. Might bring Nathan on the pod. Introduce him as another guest, but for now we're going to do it. Peace out, gents.